All right, so I would just like to begin today by acknowledging the Indigenous people from all of the diverse and beautiful places we're all joining from. So the land on which I'm currently joining you from is now known as Nelson, but for thousands of years it was occupied by Indigenous populations and is the traditional territories of the Ktunaxa, the Silks, and the Snayaks peoples, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Indigenous persons. I just like to acknowledge with gratitude and respect that the joy I'm privileged to experience daily in these mountains and waters is in thanks to their generations of stewardship. I'd like to give you all a few moments to reflect on the lands from which you're joining us tonight. Feel free to add your own acknowledgement in the chat, or I'll just give you a few seconds to reflect silently here. All right. So just for a little bit of background on these information webinars, I'd just like to introduce you quickly to the Community Energy Association and the Kootenay Clean Energy Project. So CEA is a BC-based nonprofit. We've been working for over 25 years with local government and Indigenous communities across the province to reduce emissions, conserve energy, and help progress us to a low carbon and healthy future. As you may have witnessed in your own work or personal life, there's a lot happening in the energy efficiency, renewable energy, and home comfort space. Shifts are happening in the building, retrofit, and clean energy industries. Homeowner priorities are moving to enhanced home comfort, reduced energy costs, and lower carbon options. And then to go along with that, we have generous rebates available for energy efficient projects through multiple levels of government. So to support this movement, CEA is working on a multi-year initiative called the Kootenay Clean Energy Transition. And through this initiative, we want to help Kootenay and boundary communities prepare for a more energy efficient and healthy future through training and capacity building, community workshops like these to help increase knowledge and awareness, and as well as pilot projects that we can test and scale up within communities. So thanks to the generous support of the organizations you see listed at the bottom of this slide, we're offering this webinar series as part of that community education piece. I just want to flag as well, we have 2 more webinars left in this series, so e-mobility 101 and understanding rebate programs. They're also on Tuesdays at the same time. You can register at www.shiftshappening.ca there. And then I also just in particular interest to this session as part of the Community Clean Energy Transition Project, CEA is working with College of the Rockies to deliver the programs you see on the screen there. So we have the solar photovoltaic design and installation, as well as the electric vehicle charger installation and maintenance courses. So registration starts soon, and I'll be happy to follow up with all participants on the call just with some more information regarding registration as it becomes available. So today's webinar, Solar 101, is brought to us by Eden Yesh. So Eden is a co-owner of Kootenay Solar. It's a solar design and installation company based in Invermere. I'll let Eden introduce himself, but he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to solar energy, and we are really glad to have him here with us today. Just before we begin, I wanted to poll the group really quickly just to see where everyone is joining us from. If you're outside of one of the listed regional districts, please just add in the chat where you're joining us from. And then again, at the end of this session, I'll be polling everyone for anonymous feedback on the webinar itself. So please stick around. It will just take you an extra 2 minutes. We really appreciate your feedback, and we're going to use it to inform future webinar topics, as well as to learn ways to improve our webinars moving forward. So just really quickly here, I'll poll the group to see where everyone's joining us from. Well, you know what, Marianne?
Yeah.
Do you have access to the, are you maybe logged into the CEA account?
I am, yep.
So the poll might be.
I do see an option for polls.
Yeah, is there a location poll on there you can bring up and share with the group?
Let me look. There is, I'm gonna launch it.
Thank you. All right. When it looks like we've had the majority of people sharing their location with us, we can let Eden take the floor. How's it looking there, Marianne?
We're 19 of 21 people.
All right.
Nobody's adding, so I
I'm
think we're good.
satisfied with that. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wait,
Great.
one more, 20 of 21.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm going to stop my screen share here and I'll let Eden take over.
I just hit the share results button for you, so I'm not sure if you can see that on the screen. Jenna?
I can't see it. No.
Can anybody see the
But you know what? If you share your screen, we might be able to see it. Oh, others can see it. Okay, great.
people are from regional district Kootenay boundary, 40% are from regional district central Kootenay, 25% are from RDEK, regional district East Kootenays, and 10% from other, which could be Columbus-Shuswap regional district or Vancouver Island or. Welcome,
Awesome.
everybody. Thank you, Jenna. I'll get right into it and try to keep my presentation to a half hour to leave at least 20-25 minutes for questions and answers, because I feel like that's where a lot of the good juicy discussions and understanding come from. So again, my name is Eden Yesh. I am the co-owner of Kootenay Solar. Kootenay Solar also owns 40% of Rocky View Solar, which is an Alberta corporation that we replicated 2 years ago. And we also own Taurus Electric Ltd in the Columbia Valley, which specializes in clean energy solar connections with our electricians and electric vehicle chargers. So we, my past life, 12 years of my past life I spent in employment services, working with people with disabilities and vulnerable populations. Then we moved into workforce development, and I spent about 8 to 9 years in sustainable community economic development. 7 to 8 years of that was spent on establishing a community investment ecosystem for Western Canada. I worked with the federal government and the provincial government, and we created several investment co-ops, which allowed local residents to repatriate some of their investment capital back into local communities and businesses. So I spent 12 years in the charitable sector with contracting with governments and doing a lot of economic development. And several years ago, I just knew that the writing was on the wall. We had to have all hands on deck for climate action. And if I wasn't doing 100% of my waking hours at work committing to that, I felt like I wasn't making good use of my time. I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. I've studied enough climate science. I'm sure everybody on this call is here for the same reason, is how to reduce your carbon footprint. So I embarked in the private sector several years ago and set up these 3 companies, and we've now got 12 staff across 2 provinces, and we're growing 200-300% every year. This year we've done about 100, just over 100 installations in the Kootenays and 20 in Alberta, and then we've done about 35 electric vehicle chargers with Taurus Electric. So just really supporting the clean energy transition from our group of companies. That's really kind of my rationale to get into here. Is I always worked on empowering local communities, is kind of my background, my training and education, and solar with local energy production, wealth creation, and affordable electricity, which is becoming more and more of a concern, just spoke to me with the climate action and with local community investment. So we've been working with the investment co-op that I've set up both across BC and Alberta to start investing local people's money into solar panels so that you can get it onto other people's roofs. Even if you don't have solar, You can invest into companies like ourselves that are putting solar up onto roofs or commercial businesses or fields. So, the 12 years, luckily, has continued. I've kept that bridge and worked well with the cooperative and community investment sectors that I worked so closely with in the past. And the last thing is I dedicated a decade of my life to community development and employment services and working with vulnerable populations. I'm now dedicating this decade, the 2020s, to climate action as much as I can. And we need all hands on deck because we've gone through the Holocene, the last 10,000 years of a stable environment, which all of our crops and all of our food systems and all of our civilizations at this point in time rely on a stable environment. We've now left the Holocene and we're into the Anthropocene, which is uncharted territory. And we're going to reach tipping points in this decade and early 2030s that we might not come back from unless we have some drastic changes and some drastic innovation and policy pushes and support from every different sector. So I encourage everybody, if you're a homeowner, if you're a nonprofit board member, if you're in industry, just there's lots of ways to contribute to reducing our carbon footprints and at the same time empowering local communities and economies to thrive, especially in rural areas. So that's my intro. I jump into the presentation. Maybe Jenna, you could just let me know when the screen sharing starts.
Yep, it's popping up there. It's just loading. Oh, yep, we're good to go.
Well, the solar industry itself really started picking up steam in globally. The US had a sunshot, like it was based off the moonshot initiative, getting a man on the moon. Then the US Department of Energy and Defense started an initiative called Sunshot, where they were trying to get solar implemented at an incredible pace and really change their energy matrix from importing so much to being able to produce as much of the energy as they needed to locally, nationally. And it started in the 60s and 70s, and many of you know it's 40, 50-year-old technology, but over the last decade, with policy, with Paris Climate Accord, and with cost of energy, oil and gas and propane rising, renewables have dropped so drastically that they're now the most competitive new energy forms of production on the market across the globe. So my business partner, Stu Bilodeau, who's a Red Seal electrician, and my other business partner, who's a master electrician in Alberta, we saw the writing on the wall. We knew there was paradigm shifts happening. We wanted to be one of those leaders and one of those early adopters to help educate people, clients, structural engineers, architects, governments, all of my economic development background. I'm working with all of the same sectors to educate people on the clean energy transition, now just from a private lens. So, yeah, it's a 40-year-old technology, but in the last decade, prices have dropped drastically, which has made it the most competitive for electricity production. And even the carbon footprint of solar panels, the mining, the manufacturing, transportation to get to your rooftop in Canada, that I've seen several studies, but what I've found the average is that within 6 years, you're net zero. If you're replacing solar with fossil fuels, with natural gas or propane, or just creating localized electrons that don't have to be shipped or don't have to be provided to you and burned in fossil fuels, within 6 years, the manufacturing, the distribution, and the transportation is awash because of the cleanliness of solar panels and the localized production of it. So it's an amazing product, making electrons from the sun for your appliances under your building. So this is the introduction. I'm going to go over how panels work, types of solar arrays, ways to mount solar panels, the history of solar and electricity rates, solar irradiation, clean energy trends globally, provincially, and installation process at our company. I want to give you an idea of the installation process at our company, even the quoting and sales process, so that if you're going around and shopping for quotes, you know what the precedent is. Because there's a lot of people doing solar now because they see the money in it, but you got to make sure you're getting it from a reputable contractor and that they're going through all of the right hoops and permitting processes and structural engineering safety protocols. So I'll tell you what we do so that you can kind of check it off when you're shopping around with other companies. Okay, so basically solar panels are made up of they're squished silicon between tempered glass and a backsheet, and they're very durable. I can't remember the exact number, but I think there's like a maybe like a 10-millimeter ball of hail at 90 kilometers an hour. These things are rated for. It's up there to be Canada proof, basically tempered glass that you can stand on these panels and they won't crack. So they're very durable. They're built for cold climate, the panels that we get. And then inside of it is a silicone wafers. They're called solar wafers. You'll have 60 wafers or 72 wafers, which is the size of the solar panel itself. But basically in a photon, a solar light or sunlight, photons are packed with electrons. So it's going to pass through this top layer, this negative layer, into the middle layer where your silicone is. And it's going to knock an electron out of the atom of the silicone molecule, or the silicone atom. That electron is going to float up to the top, and the electron from the sun is going to float to the bottom. There's something along those lines. But basically, it's creating an electrical current. And you've got electrical flow captured by metallic strips. So you've got two whips that come off the back of a solar panel, and when the sunlight shines, it's knocking electrons off of atoms and they're being replaced, and then there's all of a sudden an electrical current. That's a direct current. I believe it's the next one. It's a direct current coming off your solar panels, which means it's very dangerous. Alternating current is a lot safer. Direct current also, our appliances in our house don't use direct current. 99% of everything we use is alternating current. So on your solar panels will produce direct current electrons from the sunlight. You have to then take that and invert it into alternating current using an inverter. Again, there's two types of panels in general. There's everything from all black to bifacial panels and everything in between, but right on the market right now is about 72 cell panels, which stand about 7 feet tall by 3.5 feet wide. And then there's 60 cell panels, which are about 6 feet tall by 3.5 feet wide. So when somebody's quoting you on panels that are 390 or 455 watts as opposed to 375 watts, it's not because the panel is more efficient or a better panel. It's because it's bigger. Efficiency in the solar sector is anywhere from like 18 to 22%. And our panels that we have are typically around 21% efficiency. There's a lot happening in laboratories right now to break through that efficiency ceiling so that you can get more electron production per square foot. But nothing's mainstream. Nothing has been proven to work. And when it is proven to work, it's at least a 3 to 5 year lag before they start developing and mining, manufacturing, and transporting it and getting it into the Canadian sector. So if you're seeing a lot of innovation, yes, it's happening. But when you look at mainstream supply chain logistics, anything innovative is at least 5 years away. So this is what's on the market right now, anywhere from 350 watt panels to 490 watt panels. 300 range is 60 cells, 6 foot tall. 400 range plus is 72 cells, about 7 feet tall. If you want to know the exact height, it's 69.5 inches tall for the 60 cells and 83 inches tall for the 72 cells. You want to go measure your roof and figure out how many rows you can put on. Solar irradiance is the usable sunlight hours based on 20, 30-year weather, historical weather data. So solar irradiance is measured in kilowatt hours, kWh, per kilowatt installed, kW, per year. You'll see here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but under units, kilowatt hours per kilowatt per year. So that says if you put 1 kilowatt of solar panels, which is 3 or 4 solar panels up, you're going to produce anywhere from 950 to 1400 kilowatt hours per year with those 4 panels. So when you look at your electricity bills from Fortis and Melton Hydro or BC Hydro, we always ask you, what's your annual electricity consumption? Is it 7,000 kilowatt hours, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 30,000? Depends on your house, depends on your energy matrix. If you're using natural gas or propane or all electric, and it depends on, yeah, again, the size of your house and the insulation value, doors and windows and fenestration. So if we're sizing, we or another solar company are sizing accurately, make sure they're asking for your annual electricity consumption historically, because that's the most accurate you can get for a solar install. In the Kootenays, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got some of the best solar radiation in Canada. It's even better than some places like California and Germany, which are some of the top jurisdictions for solar, mainly because they're charging out at 30 to 40 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. So everybody's going solar out of necessity, but we actually have more usable sunlight in the Kootenays than many places across Canada, which shocked me when I first saw this map. But we're around 1,200 to 1,300 kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed. So if you're looking at a 10 kilowatt system, 20, 25 panels on your roof, you're going to generate around 12,000 to 13,000 kilowatt hours per year, which is typically the average electricity consumption of the average BC home, 10 to 12,000 kilowatt hours per year. So you can 100% offset your electricity bills with rooftop solar or ground mount solar in the Kootenays. Again, direct current coming off the panels, you have to invert that to alternating current. And you do this with inverters. There's several types of inverters. The industry for the first 30 or 40 years used string inverters. But if one panel got shaded because they were all on one string, you would be as strong as the weakest link. So if one panel, if an eagle craps on one panel, a big crap, your entire panels are gone, right? You're now down to 50% production because it's called soiling, right? If there's leaves over top of one panel, all of your other panels are now at 50% production. So there's been a lot of technology improvements in inverters over the decades. What happened first was there was power optimizers with string inverters. So a string inverter is probably about 2 to 3 feet tall by a foot and a half wide, and it's a big hunky inverter that sits inside your house next to your control panel, whether that's in your pantry or garage or guest room. You got a massive inverter inside your house and you're running direct current into that inverter to then switch it over into alternating current and tie it into your electrical panel to feed all of your appliances. The same thing, the same big inverter sitting in your house with POs, power optimizers on the roof, those get installed behind every single panel. So that's called MPPT, maximum power point tracking. If one panel is shaded, they all don't go to 50%. It's maximum power point tracking, so everything is optimized per panel. But now you've got one central point of failure in the house. If that inverter goes down, all of your panels cease to produce power. And then you've also got all of the power optimizer potential points of failure on the rooftop as well. So we actually prefer 85% of the time of our installations, we're using microinverters. It's the leading grid tie technology right now. That means that if you don't need batteries, which run off DC, direct current, go with a microinverter system because it changes it from DC to AC right on the rooftop behind the panel. And then you don't even have to have a big inverter in your house. It just comes in with one traditional line, 6 or AWG cord, and it ties right into the bottom of your electric panel. You barely even notice it. And that's what we use. And there's no central point of failure. Alternating current traveling through your house through a wire is also safer. And there's less Canadian electrical codes around it. So we like microinverters, but we also use string inverters with power optimizers when there's a battery backup system that needs to be installed. So that's the time that we would use that. This is a grid tie system. Grid tie means that you're attached to the utility. You've got power coming from the power lines underground or overhead into your building. And your solar panels create DC, your inverter changes it to AC, your appliances use as much as electrons as is needed and during sunlight hours. If you're producing over anything your appliances require, your utility meter on the outside of the building starts spinning backwards and you start getting net credits from BC Hydro or Fortis or Nelson Hydro. So you get a 1-to-1 kilowatt hour credit if you're overproducing electrons during the day. Then you can use those credits up at night when the sun's not shining, or into the fall and winter when the snow is lower or sun is lower and snow covers your panels. So that's a grid tie system, which means that there's more permitting and utility applications and safety concerns and anti-islanding built into the inverter systems, so that if the grid goes out and your inverters sense that there's no push of electrons backwards, they shut down within a few milliseconds so as not to kill a line worker on the power lines. You can't backflow back into the grid when the grid's out, so these systems will shut down completely. They're very intelligent that way. An off-grid system or battery backup system has what's called a smart switch in a battery backup system, which is grid connected with a battery bank for power outages of like 1 to 2 days at a time. It'll transfer within milliseconds and disallow any electrons to flow back into the grid. It'll shut down solar production likely and just start pulling from the battery bank. So because your batteries take DC electricity, you've got solar panels on your roof going through a charge controller, which feeds your battery bank. So we size the solar array and the battery bank on how much electrical loads you want to back up and for how long, how many days of autonomy. So do you have 3-day power outages or do you just have 30-minute power outages? That'll determine how many batteries and how big of solar array you want. The charge controller just makes sure that you don't overcharge the batteries. And then as soon as it senses that the grid's out, or if you're an off-grid recreational property, or, I mean, we've done a $300,000 off-grid job for 2 houses that didn't want to bring BC Hydro in, because it was going to cost them $250,000 to bring power up from the highway all the way to their house. So they just said, you know what, economics are, let's just do an off-grid system, because it's basically the same price, and we don't have a bill to BC Hydro for 25 years. It comes through your battery bank DC through an inverter, and the inverter turns it into alternating current. You also have, we work with Generac generators all the time with auto transfer. So if it senses the grid goes out and your battery bank is low, your generator will auto start propane or natural gas and be your secondary or tertiary backup to make sure you're still running your home. So those are kind of the 3 different types of solar. Grid tie with microinverters, battery backup with a battery bank if you have power outages, consistent power outages, and you're still tied to the grid, or off-grid completely where there's no lines coming into your property, you are your own utility. And we do all 3 of those. These are some types of solar installations. You've got ground mount in the top here. It's one of our installs in Edgewater. You've got solar carports. They come prefabricated. We've done those. We're also doing one right now in the Columbia Valley, which is a timber frame custom built carport. Fits 2 cars and they've got 26 panels that form the roof. So it's really, we can pretty much do anything with our engineers and contractors. There's rooftop installations. That's kind of the three that are out there. And then there's some flat roof installations as well. So rooftop shingle, we don't use this product anymore. I can start switching this out actually. But we don't use the flashing where you pry up the asphalt shingles and damage them. We've got what's called Roof Tech product, and it's a self-sealing butyl that goes through the shingle, through the top of the shingle with mini lag bolts. And that is a 20-year watertight warranty from the product. It's the leading product in the industry right now in North America. That's asphalt shingle mounting. It sits on L brackets and rails, and then your solar panels and inverters sit on top of the rails. If you've got a standing seam or corrugated metal roof, you can do a clamp-on system where you don't actually penetrate the roof. You just clamp to the standing seam metal. There's also hanger bolts, which is the bottom left corner. There's awning mounts, which is the bottom middle. And then we've done lots of called ballast projects where commercial buildings or flat roof residential homes you don't penetrate through rolled asphalt ceilings. You would use cement ballasts and an EcoFoot product, which is about a 10 to 15 degree tilt. And then that's called a flat roof EcoFoot ballast system. So asphalt shingle, metal, corrugated, awnings, and flat roofs are typically the top rooftop mounting products. And then there's the ground mounts, of course, and solar carports. Again, like I said, solar industry has been around since the 70s. It used to be about $76 per watt in 1977. 2017, it's about 25 cents per watt for the cost of solar panels. We're seeing in Canada though, that it's bumped back up. 2017 was pretty much the lowest it's ever gone in North America. And you're getting cheaper prices in the US. This is US dollars, by the way. But during COVID with supply chain increases, we've seen it jump back up to about 40 to 50 cents per watt. But it's still a hell of a lot better than $76 per watt. So you can see how cost competitive solar has become, even in residential cases. You don't even have to go to a megawatt or more solar field. This is just 10 to 20 to 30 solar panels on a roof. What excites me most and gives me hope, because I've been on the edge of hopelessness and nihilism for several years leading up to solar, because it just seemed like the amount of change that we have to go through as a society and globally is like something we've never done. And then we went through COVID and everybody jumped as high as they said to jump. So we know that it's possible. If the threat is big enough, we can change rapidly. Everybody can change rapidly with policy support, with industry support, with all hands on deck. The potential is there to do a swift and just, socially just, clean energy transition. So with my sustainable community economic development background and care for vulnerable populations and local economies, I'm very excited to be one of the leading edge companies and group of companies in the clean energy transition, because it's decentralized. It's peer-to-peer. You don't have this command and control distribution network where there's a few select companies in the country, wherever you're operating, running power production and distribution and sales. You now have what's called prosumers. You're a producer and you're a consumer. You have community solar, you have other generation, you have battery storage, you have wind storage, you have tidal, on the oceans, you have tidal energy being created. You have hydrogen being created, and this is all wind, water, sun, tidal. This is all localized resources from Mother Nature that we can harness to create a new economy, basically a shared peer-to-peer network. plug-in electric vehicles and fuel cell electric vehicles. If you add a level 2 EV charger to your house, soon enough, you're going to be able to put that onto a PlugShare app as soon as policy is passed through the government, where if you're at work with your electric vehicle during the day and your EV charger is sitting at home hung up with your solar panels producing, you can put that on a PlugShare network soon enough, not right now, I don't think. And somebody can fill up their electric vehicle charger and pay you money for the solar energy that you're producing and charger. So the infrastructure doesn't just have to be on public buildings now, which is a whole different paradigm shift, like I'm saying. So with technology, with renewables and localized energy, there is a massive shift happening at an incredible pace. We've also, or a group of companies is also partnering with Thor Hydrogen and a First Nations group to start looking at net zero business parks and hydrogen production. So running fully net zero electric and hydrogen power production, fueling stations, and real estate, light industrial, commercial real estate, and retail real estate. We're going to start rolling these out in the next few years across the Kootenays. So again, super exciting times, and we're just pleased to be in the middle of all of it. I just want to say that energy isn't electricity. So when people say, oh, why are you doing solar in BC? It's already clean electricity. I have a lot of Albertan friends that say that. You guys are already hydro. Why are you doing solar? It's just an uphill battle. One is affordability. Two is only 30 to 40% of our energy matrix in BC is clean energy hydropower. We still have petroleum, we still have fossil fuels, we still have propane, natural gas, diesel, and petroleum, like I said. So there's 60% of the energy grid in our heating and cooling and transportation networks that has to be electrified or with either lithium-ion batteries, solar and wind and storage, or hydrogen. So that's a massive part of our energy mix in British Columbia. It's not an uphill battle. We're not 100% clean province. We've got a long ways to go, but we can set a precedent. And I think we've already been setting a precedent for our country in British Columbia on clean energy culture and policy. So just want to make sure that everybody knows that we aren't fully clean province. We've got a long way to go. I won't talk too much about the Paris Climate Accord and the 2%, well, 1.5 now, it's I think it's 2% post-industrial levels. I think everybody knows enough about that. Basically, this is our process, and if you have other solar companies quoting you, you should look into what they do with their process, from the whole invoicing, the permitting piece. We provide free estimates on everything. That's an initial estimate with aerial imagery and a free on-site assessment with a detailed proposal. So if somebody's charging you to get a solar assessment done, take a second look. It should be a free assessment. And then we provide the site assessment where we come visit you, jump up on your roof, measure vent stacks, pop up into your attic, make sure you have either trusses or rafters big enough to support an additional dead load. Look at the year the building was built, take building perimeter measurements, and go into your electrical room and look at your electrical panel and the breakers that are in there to ensure that it has the capacity to hold the amount of solar you want. We do proper shading analysis where we're up on the roof taking the sun arc and looking if there's any shading issues and adding that into the proposal, because shading is very concerning for solar panels. Not concerning, that's the wrong word, but it limits production. If you've got a massive pine tree sitting right in front of your solar panels, you go from 100% potential energy production to 50% energy production. That takes you from a 10-year payback to a 20-year payback. So we like to be very honest with you, saying that is a massive shading issue. Either you decide to cut it down, or here's your proposal with 50% conservative production estimates. And then once we decide on a final quote and we go over it with you in our sales department, then we do a contract signature and take a 10% retainer. That helps us to engage a structural engineer if we're doing a rooftop installation. Pull electrical permits is another thing that the contractor has to do. And apply to the local authority having jurisdiction to ensure that you're pulling a building permit if they're required in the local authority, RDK or Town of Invermere, wherever we're operating under. So you want a building permit pulled, you want a structural engineer to review it, you want an electrical permit pulled, and then you need to apply to the utility, Fortis, Nelson Hydro, or BC Hydro, to do an interconnection application saying, hey, we're going to put a mini power plant on this person's roof, just so you know there's electrons being produced here. You have to let the utility know that's taking place. And then they approve it, the application, then you can do all your work. Once that application and permits is taken care of, then we'll send over a 60% material deposit, which covers most of the technology, the solar, the inverters, the aluminum, yada, yada, yada. And then we only invoice a final bill once it's completely installed, the monitoring's up and running, and the utility and electrical inspection is fully approved. Then we invoice the final 30% and provide you monitoring login details for your solar array. So that's typical what a good solar company will do. If there's steps being skipped in here anywhere, that should cause an orange or red flag for you to ask the solar company why they're not doing proper due diligence and process. Again, we have a free estimate form and a sales team that's very educational. You can call them anytime. I think we did 800 or 900 quotes this year, and again over 100 installs. So we're running a business based around education, really. 8 out of 10 of our calls coming in aren't customers. The people just ask them about solar, and we provide a lot of education to the public. So again, the shift is happening. That's CEA's slogan from the Kootenay Clean Energy Transition. They're doing a wonderful job at educating the public and the contractors out there to expedite this clean energy transition and make sure people are qualified and doing this correctly, so that clients like yourselves are getting a good product. That we're putting in cold climate heat pumps, not heat pumps that are good for Vancouver Island. That we're putting in cold climate asphalt shingle roof mounting hardware for solar, not stuff that would be good in Louisiana, right? Like you want good cold climate equipment for the Kootenays, and you got to find a reputable contractor that knows what's on the market and what works and what doesn't. That's it, Jenna. I'm going to open it up to question and answers.
Great. Yeah, we had a couple questions come up in the chat. If you're able to open it up there, I can read it out loud.
Stan Chorney said Eden indicated an offset of power based on yearly consumption. However, in our area, solar production is low in fall and almost non-existent in winter. Eden recommended a grid tie system. However, this means selling power during peak production and buying power at low production. How does this balance out considering selling power to BC Hydro is at wholesale prices but buying back at peak rates? Okay, so BC Hydro gives you a kilowatt hour credit. It's not tied to a dollar to dollar value. There's something in the BC Utilities Act definition called surplus credit. So if in the spring, summer, and fall, you create 150% of your usage during those months, you now have 50% credits to use during the winter time. If you overproduce based on your end, if you can't use all of your electrical kilowatt hour credits up by March 31st, they don't roll over, they become surplus credits paid out at wholesale rates, which is 3.99 or 0.399 cents per kilowatt hour. So the reason you want somebody to ask you, a solar contractor, to say, what is your annual electricity production? Because if we size you a 12 kilowatt system to produce 14,000 kilowatt hours per year, but you're only using 10,000 kilowatt hours per year, now you're just oversized your system, and yeah, you've given a lot more money to the contractor, but now you've got 4,000 kilowatt hour credits that are being paid out at 3.399 cents, which is not economical. So we want to get as close to that 100% consumption as possible, because it's a net metering program, which means you get to use those kilowatt hour credits up in the fall and the winter. Does that answer your question, Stan? You don't have to use the electrons at the time, and if you're spinning the meter backwards, you're getting a kilowatt hour credit bank to keep you out of step 2 rates. Because when you're using a lot of electricity, you first pull from your kilowatt hour credit bank as opposed to pulling from BC Hydro rates, and it keeps you out of that step 2 14 cents per kilowatt hour rate more often, because you're overproducing in the spring months. Hope that answers your question. Okay, so Gary Tomlinson said, I have a 16,000 square foot of flat roof, and in the future 40,000 square foot. I use zero electricity at this commercial site. I would like to put solar on the roof, but it looks like I can't sell it in the grid. Correct, Gary. You can chat with me offline, but BC Hydro right now stopped the independent power producer program, which is the IPP program, because they had BC Site C Dam coming online. They had a lot of legacy contracts with wind and micro hydro producers, so they're re-looking at their energy matrix and what they want to buy from people, as opposed to what they produce and have already signed on to long-term power purchase agreements. In the future, BC Hydro or FortisBC or Nelson Hydro might open up the IPP program again. And at that point, if they're going to pay you for electricity production on a site that's not using electricity, that you're just dumping into the grid, the economics aren't there to sell it at 4 cents per kilowatt hour. You want to wait until there's a new rate class for independent power producers to put that up. So you can email me afterwards and I can keep you on a list of potential projects in the future when a new rate class pops up. But right now it's not economical to do until you're either consuming all of that electricity on site, or until a rate class pops up where you can dump all of the electrons in the grid and get paid a fair rate. And you said also, I'd like to retain the carbon credits from the electricity generation. That's a whole other conversation out of my scope too. So April Lebedoff said, where are the panels you use made and how is the supply chain? We use Baywa Renewable Energy is the largest solar distributor in Canada, and they're also in 56 other countries. They've got the largest purchasing power, and they care a lot about supply chain logistics and human welfare. So the panels we use, whether it's JA Solar or Longy or Hanwha, those are made in Vietnam or South Korea typically. We don't purchase panels made in China. We've made that clear to our customers. So that's the best we can get. We do have access to North American made panels. Out of 170 something installations, one client has decided to go with North American panels because they're 50 to 60% more expensive. So when it comes down to it, people like to say, I don't want to purchase from an Asian country. But when we look at the data and the stats, price point still matters a lot to people. So we do, it's called Silfab panels. Silfab's made in the United States. There's no solar panels manufactured in Canada anymore. Canadian Solar we used to purchase from in Ontario, but they kind of stopped supplying the Canadian market, and they're just supplying Texas and large, massive solar farms. So we can't even get warranty products out of Canadian Solar anymore. We have to swap out our warranty on panels that we installed years ago with a Longy panel. So Canada doesn't have any domestic manufacturing for solar, unfortunately, at the moment. Something I'm working on too. We're just trying to incentivize other companies from Europe to start opening up plants here in Canada. Kristen Walsh said, will a building inspector review my solar system, or do I need a professional to have my off-grid home approved? Yes and yes and yes. So, well, depends on the authority having jurisdiction. So most 75–85% of the AHJs in British Columbia, in the Kootenays where we operate, and 100% of the authorities having jurisdiction, which is like the town or the county or the regional district, they require a building permit to be pulled. And the building permit requires a structural engineer review and stamp and an electrical permit to be pulled. And to have Canadian Safety Authority CSA approved products. Those are the three things that we do irregardless if we need a building permit or not. So we go through all of those steps for safety and for proper permitting processes. And then a building inspector does not come and look at it. Some building inspectors do, because they're very interested in the new solar sector and they're just more curious than anything, but you don't need a building inspector to review a structural engineer's review, because a structural engineer, I hate using this word, but trumps expertise in load bearing dead weight on a house that a building inspector does, that has to know a ton of different codes. A professional structural engineer is the expert you want reviewing additional dead loads on your roof. And we do that. And it should be done by any solar company. Sean Ryan, this is a great podcast on this topic. It also becomes a common claim that sustainable energy, solar and wind use a lot of resources. So what's the point? I'm not going to click that link right now. I don't know what that is. Unless Sean, you want to write a description of it. April said, how much does a 12-panel residential roof grid cost typically? Ballpark 12-panel residential roof, 12 panels times 375 watt panels is a 4.5 kilowatt system, times about $2.20 per watt is about 9,900. So call it $10,000. $10,000 times 1.05 with GST is 10,500. Minus your $5,000 grant from the federal government, it's going to be $5,000. So a 5 kilowatt system is going to cost you around $5,000 to $6,000 after the $5,000 federal rebate for solar panels, which is about a 7-year payback period. And these panels are under warranty for 25 years power performance warranty, and the inverters that we use are under 25-year warranties. So you're paid back from what you would. Money saved is money earned. This is a big education piece we talk about all the time with clients. People think solar is a luxury item, but they'll go spend money on marble countertops and bathroom renovations. Those are luxury expenses. Solar can be produced at less cost than utility today without incentives. Now there's also incentives, which are almost 50%. So the economics are hands down, it's not even a sale anymore. It's, do you want to continue buying 100% of your electricity for the rest of your life every single month from a utility, or do you want to produce 50 to 100% of your electricity on your own rooftop for cheaper? That's the question that's happening right now. So our sales team, who comes from sales sectors, are basically like, I don't have to sell anymore. I just have to educate on what's out there. Ben Martin, how does rooftop solar perform in winter areas with lots of snow, Elk Valley, or do we ignore winter and maximize spring, summer, fall production? Yes, you ignore winter unless you're a battery backup or off-grid client that needs that electricity production 12 months of the year. If you're grid tied, just overproduce in the spring, summer, and fall and use the credits in the winter if it's semi-flat roof. If it's a 30-degree pitch, 45-degree pitch roof, all of a sudden your solar panels will slough off and they'll be wide open in the wintertime, which is great solar production. If you do a ground mount, which is a typical 45-degree tilt, we can even tilt it up to 50 degrees. You can also walk up there with a leaf blower or Snow Pro rake, which is just basically a very soft plastic that doesn't scratch your solar panels, and wipe off your panels so you have production year round. There's all sorts of different scenarios, but it's case by case and property by property and roof pitch by roof pitch or ground mount versus flat roof. So most of the time, the case is that you disregard solar production in January and February, and you produce 10 months out of the year. Well, at the Elk Valley, January, February, and March, you'd be under snow on a flatter pitch roof. I hope that answers your question. And April, you can get a copy of the recording from Jenna and CEA. She'll probably post it on the website and she'll email it out to everybody.
Yeah, perfect. We have time for, oh, okay, great. I was going to say we have time for about one more question, and Ben, you beat me to it. So yeah, tell us more about the federal rebate and any other rebates we might be eligible for.
Well, we're a big advocate for the clean energy transition, which means that we also recommend heat pumps, insulation, good windows and doors, as well as solar. So the rebate federally, the $5,600 Canada Greener Home rebate, is for energy efficiency upgrades. So that can be solar, windows and doors, insulation, heat pumps, LED lighting, EV chargers. There's also provincial rebates from BC Hydro if you're doing fuel switching. So if you're getting off propane or natural gas or oil furnace and switching to clean electricity, you can also get additional rebates. Jenna, you might know better than I do, but anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 ish, which you can also layer on top of the federal $5,000 rebate. And then there might even be local rebates with Fortis and BC Hydro and Nelson Hydro to get EV chargers or other kind of high efficiency things. So CEA would be your best resource, and probably the shifts happening.ca with the, I'm hoping that you're going to be the concierge group at Community Energy Association to help people navigate the complex rebate environment that's out there. There's also Plug-in BC, which is anything electric vehicle related. They've got 40 to 60 different granting streams out there, anywhere from First Nations to nonprofits to multi-unit residential buildings. The list goes on and on and on, but the federal rebate program is by far like the easiest for solar. There's no other provincial or local rebates for solar at the moment. So you can layer provincial grants for your heat pump and for your insulation, and then you can have the federal grant for your solar, and you can do most of them. The other beauty of the federal grant is that they just launched in June or July, that they have a $40,000 zero interest loan program. So you can amortize up to $40,000, pay $0 in interest over those 10 years for anything of your energy efficiency upgrades. The catch with the Canada Greener Homes program is that, well, it's not a catch, it's a qualification. You have to have a energy advisor, a qualified energy advisor that's registered with NRCan, National Resources Canada. And there's lots of them in our area. CEA probably has a list of them too. They have to come and do a pre-retrofit. So before you do any energy efficiency upgrades, solar or windows or HVAC systems, you have to have an energy advisor do an energy evaluation. They do a blower door test, they look at your windows and doors, they look at the depth of your insulation, what type of windows you have, a whole home assessment, and they give you a report that says, here's what we recommend you doing to make your house more energy efficient. Usually there's about 6 to 8 things on that list, and you upload that to the Canada Greener Homes portal, and then you can start getting quotes from contractors. And then once you get approved quotes in the system, then you can apply for the Canada Greener Homes loan program, which is another 40-day wait period. But the beauty of it is you're already paying out electricity to your utility. So why not get a $5,600 grant rebate, put up your own electricity plant on your roof to reduce what you pay and pay off your loan with the money that you would have been paying anyways to utility, 0% loan to the federal government, and within 7 to 10 years it's paid off because of the money saved that you would have been paying to the utility. Now you've got your own power plant that's under warranty for 25 years. It's a very good program.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for that. And I'll be happy to send it. We do have like a little bit of a cheat sheet. There are a lot of different rebate programs, and it is a little difficult to navigate. So we've kind of broken it down in an easy to read format that I'm happy to send out along with this recording when we have it ready to go. Just want to be cognizant of the time. It's 7 o'clock here. It's 8 o'clock in the East Kootenays. I have Marianne here helping me. Yeah, thank you, Marianne. I just want to give everyone an opportunity to fill out our feedback survey, and then not sure, Eden, if you're ready to jump off, or if you want to stick around and answer any questions that come up. That is up to you.
Stick around for another 10 minutes or so if people want to just
Okay. Okay, great. Well, we'll do the poll really quick so that those who want to leave are able to hop off. And then I do see there are still another couple questions in the chat that we can get to afterwards.
Last question in the chat is an important one, so I'll answer it while people are filling out the poll, if that's okay. The question was, when you need to get your roof resurfaced and resheeted, what happens if you have solar panels on it? So we'll go in, and again, don't let any solar companies push you on a solar installation if the roof has like 5 years left, 10 years left of life. You can tell because the shingles are starting to curl up. It's way too old of a roof to put solar on. So we always say, like, if the roof has at least 15 more years of life, 15 to 30 years, because roofs are usually typically 30-year warranty, and you can tell what has a 15-year lifespan as opposed to a 5-year. We'll recommend, and we've got roofing companies around the Kootenays and Alberta that we refer to, saying, hey, this person wants solar, but we're not touching it until you go re-roof it. Make sure you get an honest solar company that doesn't want your business to put up on an old roof. Get your roof resheeted if it's under 10 years lifespan left. If your roof has 15 years or more and you put solar panels up, it's actually going to protect your roof shingles underneath of it from UV light, and it's going to double the lifespan of the shingles underneath the solar panels. The outside of the solar will look like a tan line almost from UV penetration on the asphalt shingles. Long story short, you've already paid for 80% of your permitting, your electrical permits, your approvals, your interconnection, and all of your technology and solar materials and the installation to get it out there and deliver the products. Now you just need us to come in for half a day's labor with 2 people who remove the solar panels and palletize it in the garage. We coordinate with the roofing company, rip everything off, tell us when you got it back up, and we'll come back when you got a new roof up and we'll reinstall that for another half a day. So at that point, 15 or 20 years in the future, you've already paid your solar panels off. So you're already making free electricity. So I would say if you've got more than 10 to 15 years life on your roof, add solar. If you've got less, start considering a roof replacement before you put solar on it.
Great. And I saw that we missed a question there too. What are the maintenance requirements of these systems? What brands of solar equipment do you guys install or recommend?
Oh yeah, from Kieran. Sorry, I missed that.
Okay.
Maintenance requirements. We have an operations and maintenance program, which is basically billed out at hourly rates when we're on site. It's going to be every 3 to 5 years. You might want us up there for 2 hours to just check bolt tightness, because there's no moving parts on solar. That's the beauty of it. It's not wind, it's not hydro, it's not propane and natural gas spinning turbines. It's solar, which is aluminum panels, tempered glass strapped to aluminum rails, and copper wire running into your house. There's 0 moving parts. And the technology is under 25-year power performance output warranties, inverters, and the solar panels. We use anything from N-phase microinverters, Solar Edge, DC inverters and optimizers, AP systems, microinverters, Solar, Fortress batteries, all sorts of stuff. Simplify. We use Longy panels, we use Hanwha panels, we use JA panels, anything that's manufactured, we try as much as possible. All of the aluminum racking we get is Canadian, out of Ontario, kinetic racking, or fast pack from Victoria for ground mounts. So we try to shop as domestic or North American procurement policy first, if we can find it within reason. Reasonable pricing, and if not, then we'll go to Europe and Southeast Asia next. But, yeah, it just depends on your solar goals. Are you looking for battery backup? It's going to be a different inverter backup. Are you looking for ground mount solar with bifacial panels, which means you're getting sunlight solar production from the front and the back? That might be a different solar panel company than what we would typically put on flush enough roof. So we work with 30 different original equipment manufacturers. And we do all of the warranty support. So the operations and maintenance program and services, we have a remote tech support department that just helps people monitor their panels. And if a panel stops working, we can see that remotely. We can go to the original equipment manufacturer inverters to troubleshoot through the airwaves, through Zigbee, and send signals electronically to reset inverters before anybody has to roll tires. And then if it's deemed that we have to get up onto your roof and roll tires, pull the panel up, do an inverter replacement, we'll take care of all the warranty piece, but we'll charge you for the 2 hours of labor on the roof. So, but again, that's less than 5% failure rates in the industry. So it's pretty good technology out there now. Do solar panels also reduce heating up your roof? Yes, to a certain degree, but insulation is going to be a hell of a lot better because the ambient temperature outside, if it's a 35, 40 degree day, it doesn't matter if there's solar panels on your roof because it's coming through your attic vents anyways. Your insulation on your ceiling joists is more beneficial than solar panels blocking sunlight, heating up asphalt shingles. It'll reduce it a tiny bit, but you're still going to have, I mean, it's like 60 to 70 degrees in the attic. And we're working there sometimes in August that we have to get out of the attic at 1 p.m. or else it's like dangerous temperatures. So insulation is your best bet for making sure you're not losing air conditioning out your attic. Okay. I'm going to end the poll and share the results, Jenna, because I have that showing for me. So,
Oh, that's okay. We're going to keep the results anonymous, actually. Have a look at them later. That's okay. You're not sharing your screen anymore. So,
I want to say thank you for not putting very poor for.
All right. Okay. Any final questions? Had a few people stick around. Doesn't look like it. All right, so yeah, I'll follow up with an email. I did kind of jot down a couple of resources that Eden had mentioned that I'm happy to include in that email as well, along with this recording. So thank you very much, Eden. Thanks for that wealth of information. And thanks everyone for signing on.
Thanks, everybody.